Welcome in to the Lucas and Lucas podcast. Lucas Frankel alongside Mike Lucas. Mike, we're here on a Tuesday afternoon, and we all woke up to the ridiculous James Harden bullcrap about him wanting to reportedly leave the Nets to go to the Sixers this summer, team up with Joel Embiid, form a new super team. He is sick of living in Brooklyn. He is sick of Kyrie Irving. This article is from Bleacher Report. A writer by the name of Jake Fisher, not Woj, not Shams, Jake Fisher. My first question is, have you ever heard of Jake Fisher? And what is your read on this whole situation with James Harden reportedly being enraged about living in Brooklyn, hating everything about it, and wanting to leave the Nets immediately?
I have never heard of Jake Fisher. I had to click on his name when I saw the report just to see who he was. He has 30,000 followers. I don't particularly think of Bleacher Report as a place that breaks news. It's more of an aggregate site in my mind, despite the fact I know they've hired some real journalists. So I'm not going to completely discredit Bleacher Report or this guy, but I take any news I get on NBA things with a grain of salt if it doesn't come from Woj or Shams, because those guys break every story for a reason. They're the best in the business. And especially considering Fisher's not a quote unquote Nets local guy, because sometimes the local beat reporters will get a scoop here and there and beat Woj or Shams on, but this is a national guy. And to me, it feels weird that a different national guy, besides the two main newsbreakers in the NBA, would break a story of this magnitude. I DM'd you immediately when I saw it with my something fishy alert ringing at full strength. I can totally get behind the fact that Harden's frustrated with Kyrie not playing every night, his vaccination status, the fact that you don't know who you can count on and when or when not he'll be able to play per se. So I totally believe that part of the report. The part I'm not totally believing is he's sick of living in Brooklyn already. I mean, it was almost a year ago to the day, Frank, that he demanded out of Houston because he wasn't happy, and Nets were one of his preferred destinations. He chose Brooklyn as one of the places he'd be okay living. So for a year later to be like, nah, you know what, actually I'm not too happy with it, seems a little odd, especially given the basketball fit with Durant and how close this team was to winning last year. So I'm not buying it completely. I'm not going to accuse Daryl Morey or someone from the Sixers of leaking this out, but it feels like it's almost chum, like you're hunting a shark and you have to get the waters churning before anything can happen. This feels like a chum report to get the conversation started at a minimum. And I'm just not going to fully let myself believe that James Harden's truly unhappy right now with the Nets, despite the fact I can totally buy him being frustrated with Kyrie Irving.
I mean, let's call it what it is. This whole experiment with Kyrie, Harden, and Durant has just not lived up to anyone's expectations at this point. They've barely been on the court together. Durant's been hurt multiple times. Harden obviously had the whole hamstring thing last season. Kyrie hurt his ankle in Game 4 of the playoffs last season. Now Kyrie's whole vaccine thing. So, like, this whole imagination, this whole scenario that they envisioned when Harden came here just has not come to fruition by any means. And, of course, if I were Harden, I'd be enraged at Kyrie Irving. I'd want to, like, choke the guy every time I saw him. Like, you little piece of crap. You're the reason why we're not winning right now because of your ridiculous brain. I can't believe it. And the fact that he's actually going through with this, it's unbelievable. Harden's been on the record saying that he wants to be the one to give Kyrie the vaccine, but it just seems like it's never going to come to that. And I can't believe it. And I wish that we could do something like just the Nets need to take matters into their own hands here. And if this city is going to behave like this and not allow Kyrie to play, and a part of me wants to believe that this is a power play by Harden to, like, get Kyrie, get the city to start, hey, like, fix this. This is just so stupid. What are we doing? I mean, the whole living in Brooklyn thing, I can't speak to that. I can't imagine he hates, but what's there to hate in Brooklyn? Like, what's there to hate about it? I don't know.
You're in New York City. It's a giant, yeah, like, I'm with you. It's a giant, massive city.
But the whole Kyrie thing, like, move the team to, like, play in New Jersey until Adams figures out this whole mandate thing. Because, like I said, like we said last week, this mandate thing is the most hypocritical rule in sports. And I'm hoping that this is, and listen, if they never lift the mandate, then Harden's going to leave. Is basically what it comes down to. This whole thing comes back to this stupid mandate. And I don't blame Harden at all for being frustrated. Like, I'm frustrated, you're frustrated, we're all frustrated. I'm so mad right now about this whole vaccine thing because this is single-handedly taking down what should be a championship season for the Nets. It's the biggest cloud hanging over this franchise. And of course, if every single player on the team, the coach, GM, Durant, Harden, Patty Mills, Joe, every single person on this team, in this organization, should be absolutely outraged over the fact that Kyrie Irving is being so ridiculous and so self-centered and so egotistical about this whole vaccine thing and not being willing to budge in any regard whatsoever to be back on the court. And I don't blame Harden for being frustrated, but in terms of the whole other stuff, we'll get to that in a second. But what do you make of my whole tangent there on Kyrie Irving?
No, I think Kyrie's probably the most frustrating player in the NBA this year. I mean, he's a guy who, when he's on the court, is a top 20 guy in the league, and he has not been on the court for 5 games this year? He's played 5 or 6 games now. Like, that's it. You can't count on him to play at home games. The fact that they may have a game 7 at home and Kyrie, in theory, wouldn't be able to play has to be obnoxious. The fact that Harden's been out there by himself now with Durant on the bench, and Durant was out there when Harden was going through his struggles out there by himself. Like, you came to Brooklyn to play on this super team, and one of your Avengers per se has not been there. He shows up when he wants to show up or when he's technically allowed to show up, and that takes away the fun of assembling a super team to begin with. And you look at even the postseason last year, Kyrie gets hurt. That is, Harden gets his hamstring. We just haven't had a chance to see this culmination of insane basketball talent be on the floor for a prolonged period of time for whatever reason it may be. It's been injuries. It's been the COVID vaccine debacle. It's been guys out of shape. You just can't seem to get all the puzzle pieces to fit together in a way that has allowed this beautiful basketball marriage to blossom like it should have on paper. I mean, we still, 16 games? Is that the number? 16 that we've seen all three play together in 2
13
seasons
and 3.
13 and 3, yeah. So 16 total games in virtually an entire year of basketball. They've played 16 games together. It's unfathomable that it's become to this. And yeah, I've never lived in Brooklyn. It's New York City. It's a place people want to be. They have great strip clubs, allegedly. Like, I don't know what James Harden wants that he can't. Like, what do you want in theory? What would you want in Philly that you can't find in New York is my question. Unless you just love cheesesteaks. But I just don't buy that half of the report.
Unless it's, I mean, the only thing you can point to is the temperature of the weather, but the fact that he's so tied to Philly is obviously very, very fishy. Because
you think it's that much warmer in Philly, James Harden?
No. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I can't wrap my head around any of it. Obviously, it's a lot warmer in Oklahoma City where he was, and obviously Houston. I imagine it's usually. I mean, obviously they have snow. It snows a few times a year there, and it gets cold some points. But for the most part, it's a pretty warm weather area, and obviously no state income tax. But this whole state income tax thing that this Fisher guy was throwing out there, you're making over $40 million a year. Don't cry poor to me right now. You're making over $40 million a year. Don't act like this whole luxury tax thing is causing you to go broke and making you live be a homeless person. Give me a break, Jake. Money is no obstacle for you. All the endorsements you have, you're one of the highest paid players in the entire world. Don't cry me this whole state income tax thing. But in the grand scheme of things, what difference does that really make? I mean, to point to that as a reason why you hate living in a place, that is just out of line in my opinion.
Listen, there are taxes that are high in New York. There are taxes that are high in California. There are taxes that are low in certain states. There are states that don't have taxes. But guess what? No matter what state you're living in, you're still in the top 1% of the world as far as net worth and financial stability goes, James. So I understand, oh, yeah, maybe it's an excessive tax in your opinion. You're still making, like you said, $40+ million a year in game salary, plus all your endorsements, plus everything else. Your quality of life in New York, Philly, anywhere is going to be pretty solid regardless of the state income tax. So like I said, I saw the report. I've worked in news for 7 years. I have a meter of that seems fishy. This report seemed fishy to me is all I'm saying. I don't know who put it out there or where Jake Fisher is necessarily getting his quote unquote inside sources. Maybe it's Harden himself. Who knows? And maybe it's totally sound and accurate and will look stupid, but my fishy alert went on and it was ringing pretty loud this afternoon.
No pun intended, Jake Fisher. So Harden, obviously this year he's been inconsistent. He's had games where he looks like the MVP of the league and games where you look at him and you're like, man, does he even want to be here? Can he play basketball anymore? Is his athleticism gone? Oh my God, James Harden is finished as an elite basketball player. So as we've covered multiple times throughout this season, it's been a real roller coaster with James Harden. And, he's not getting any younger. So this whole thing about him, going to Philadelphia, attaching himself to one of the least durable superstars in the NBA, Joel Embiid, sort of I don't know, abandon ship and jump to Philly with Embiid. And assuming that, Daryl Morey can work his magic and the Nets are willing to let him go like that, seems a major stretch and something that, in theory, sort of a little flawed. Obviously, prime Embiid, prime Harden, they're together. They're never hurt. It could be a great connection with the pick and roll, and I think it would be an elite combo. But to trust that those two guys can stay healthy for the whole season and the playoffs, and Granted, it hasn't really worked with the Nets, so maybe I guess he's maybe like we have to just try it, just change it up. It'll work. But do you think that he ends up in? Or what do you make of this whole Philly? I feel like Daryl Morey's a whole. This whole thing is coming from the Sixers. All these reports, all these rumors, they're all coming from Philadelphia in an effort to just spice things up and almost deflect attention from the Ben Simmons debacle, because the Ben Simmons debacle is the worst debacle in the NBA. It's worse than Lillard. It is worse than Kyrie. And for my money, that is the worst single thing going on in the league right now. It's Ben Simmons.
Yeah, Kyrie's only played in 5 games, but that's 5 more than Ben Simmons has played. So you do take with a grain of salt everything that comes along with the fact that as bad as Kyrie's been in the grand scheme of things, or as much of a headache as he's been less of a headache than Ben Simmons. And I think Daryl Morey is one of the smartest GMs in the league. I think he has continually built championship rosters wherever he's been. They've been unconventional, sure, but they've won games. And if he thinks that he can slowly chip away at Harden's trust with the Nets and find a way to, put the pressure on him to leave, then I think he would, because that's his guy from Houston. That was the first superstar he traded for and really developed into a superstar. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's kind of where Harden wanted to be deep down in his heart, being back with the guy he trusted like Morey and playing alongside Embiid. But at the same time, if I'm the Nets, if KD says, hey, Harden could walk, go spend that money elsewhere, I think I let him walk. I think we've seen the peak of James Harden at this point. And the James Harden we're seeing this year, the more inconsistent version of James Harden, the bigger James Harden, who lacks that first explosive step that he once had. I think that's the trajectory of the rest of his career, which is still an all-star caliber player, still very good and at times elite. But I think the days of James Harden being an elite player for 82 games a season are probably in his rearview mirror. And I think that money could be allocated elsewhere to help fill a lot of the other holes on this roster if they let James Harden walk. And more than anything else, if Kevin Durant is okay with letting James Harden walk. If he wants him to stay, you pay Harden $80 million a year if you have to. And if he says, but you pay him whatever. I mean, if KD wants him to stay, you pay him, because KD, whatever he wants, KD gets. I don't care how bad that sounds. That's how the Nets have to operate. And if KD says, hey, let him go, he's not as good as I thought he was, you let him go. And I think you could use that money on like 4 or 5 other players that make this team more well-rounded and deeper.
And for what it's worth, ESPN.com, CBSSports.com, none of them even have an article about this on their website acknowledging this report.
Yeah.
They're not even like, I mean, that's usually when something's brewing like this is, on every site, front page, but this only seems to be coming from one individual. Take that for what it's worth. The most reputable, for my money, the most reputable sports sites are ESPN.com with Woj, and CBS Sports.com I put up there as well. But they're not even acknowledging this article. It's not even, you can't even find it anywhere. I mean, so take that for what you want. The top media outlets are almost acting like this report does not exist. So take that for what you wish.
I agree. Once again, so, my fishy alert popped up as soon as I saw it. Someone didn't know.
So the Nets, listen, the Eastern Conference is absolutely madness. It's madness right now. It's the top 6 teams are separated by 2.5 games. You have to think KD's going to miss another 3 or so weeks here, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. So I was living and dying every game by this team, but I think I've reached the point where as long as we're a top 6 seed and when we get to the playoffs, everyone is there and the mandate is lifted, then I'll be good with whatever it is, because as long as those 3 guys are there, no matter where the Nets are seated, I think that this team has obviously what it takes to win a championship, given obviously their odds and everything. So I'm done living game by game with this team. I'm just going to, sit back, just go through the motions, and just all I want is a top 6 seed. As long as we avoid that stupid play-in tournament, just get a top 6 seed, and I'll feel really good about this team, because they're going to slide. The reality is they're going to slide here with the home games coming up, no Kyrie, and some really tough opponents with Golden State, LA, Denver, some of the best teams in the entire league. And that's going to lose a lot of games here. So the reality, just stay in the mix is all I want here, and every win is a massive win.
Yeah, every win's big, and with Harden playing how he's playing, with Kyrie only playing on the road, with Durant out, you can't expect this team to keep up the pace that they've been at through the first, 52% of the season, or whatever number game we're at. But it's also not scared to think that say that somehow Nets do collapse on this stretch without KD. They're in 8th place at a point. As soon as KD comes back, they go from being an 8 seed to a 2 seed. So it's just tread water until he gets back, stay afloat in the race, and then as soon as you get KD back, it's all eyes gunning towards one of the top 3 seeds in the postseason. Like, I'm not too worried because I know when Durant's healthy, and all reports say he should come back totally fine, 100%, no issues. The Nets are the best team in the East.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Really unfortunate that Anthony Davis waited until the Nets were their opponent for him to come back for the Lakers. So it's Lakers-Nets tonight. Tickets are absolutely absurdly expensive for this game, which is why I'm not even bothering looking.
Is it on national TV?
Yeah, it's on. It'll be a TNT game.
TNT.
The Nets are 2.5-point underdogs. I feel like it should be Lakers like -6 or 7. I just feel like, first game for AD. LeBron's playing the best he ever had. It's his best basketball in a really long time.
In Barclays?
Amazing. It's in Brooklyn. It's in Brooklyn.
No Kyrie.
No Kyrie. It'll be Harden, Patty Mills. Hopefully Claxton comes back. Aldridge. Obviously Day'Ron Sharpe, Kessler, Edwards. And Nets beat them, though, on Christmas with basically this team. So they shown they can do it. Obviously Anthony Davis was not there for the Lakers. But it just feels like this might be a game where Harden scores 50. If I were betting this game, I would go Harden over everything. Points, assists, points, rebounds, assists. I feel like this is a given all the smoke from Tuesday. Harden goes out there tonight and just lays the smack. This might be Harden's best game of the season. And then we'll talk tomorrow, and he'll be 1 for 25 from the field, and that's what this might.
The Nets are going to need a superhuman performance from him to stay in this game, just like he did on Christmas. He played phenomenally against them on Christmas. I believe it was triple-double, or maybe 1 rebound short, but either way.
It was a 30-point triple-double against the Lakers.
Yeah.
I think
he was phenomenal. Patty Mills was phenomenal that game. Nick Claxton had the big dunk. I think Claxton posted on Instagram a picture of the dunk today, so I'm assuming he's coming back for tonight's contest.
He better be. And the Nets need him. Like, Day'Ron Sharpe, I think, is starting to get a little exposed. He just gets into immediate foul trouble, and he's like productive. He's productive in the minutes that he plays. He'll get like 6 points, 8 rebounds in like 10 minutes of action, and also pick up like 4 or 5 fouls in that sequence. He's still learning. He's still growing. I think he's got some nice potential in this league. He's got
he's
get
a rookie.
little more mature.
What do you expect?
All right, let's move on to the National Football League.
Chaos.
Obviously, it was the greatest divisional weekend in the history of the league, not debatable. Chiefs-Bills, was that the single greatest game in the history of the National Football League, yes or no?
For my money, the ones that I've seen, yes, it was my favorite football game, the best football game I have ever witnessed with my own 2 eyes. It was that good.
It was absolutely amazing. The 13 seconds to go, I had to obviously bet on the Chiefs. Everyone else in the room I was with had the Bills, and they were all ecstatic. They were celebrating like they had just won the Super Bowl, and I was very defeated. And then Mahomes goes out there and hits Tyreek Hill, hits Kelsey, and before you can blink, they're on the 30-yard line for a chance to tie it. So, I think the 2 greatest games that I can remember are the 2018 AFC Championship game between Mahomes and Brady and Arrowhead, and this game. Those are the 2 games that I point to as the 2 most exciting games that I could ever remember. Which obviously recency bias says it's this game, but I don't know. Take your pick. For my money, obviously. So I had an amazing gambling result because of the way it ended. So I had Patrick Mahomes over passing yards, which should not hit until he connected with Travis Kelsey to set up the game-winning field goal. So his passing yards number, I believe, was 285.5, hit on the Kelsey pass to set up the field goal. I also had Travis Kelsey anytime touchdown, which obviously hit on the game winner, and I had Chiefs -1.5. So all 3 of my bets hit in the final 13 seconds of regulation and overtime, which for my money makes it the greatest game in the history of the NFL, and I was extremely grateful. Josh Allen.
Unreal.
Why did he do tails? I blame Big Cat. You know who secretly deserves blame for this loss is Big Cat. All he spews when they interview Josh Allen and on the podcast is tails never fails. And I said as soon as he was going to do that contest, he's going to pick tails and he's going to lose because of Big Cat. And Big Cat did not bring this up on the podcast, but you could indirectly blame Big Cat for Josh Allen losing this game. He was 9-0 in coin tosses before Sunday. He went 0 for 2 on Sunday. He went with tails never fails. And guess what? Tails sometimes fails. There you go.
PFT is just as guilty in that regard because he's the tails never fails guy just next to Big Cat. Couple thoughts on the game. First off, those two quarterbacks are unbelievable.
Yeah.
And their ability, and what stood out most to me, was how defensive linemen seemingly have free shots at them and they never get hit. And I don't know how or why or what's being taught to defensive linemen when they get in the backfield on the proper technique to tackle a quarterback or take down a quarterback. But you see Mahomes and Allen with these little pump fakes and hesitation moves and all that, and they never get caught behind the line. Even when they're running for their lives, like a chicken without a head behind the line of scrimmage, spinning and wheeling and dealing, they still end up getting 3 or 4 yards out of every scramble. And that was something that stood out to me because with the Giants, as soon as they try to run, Daniel Jones gets tackled or whoever's back there gets tackled. And it was like watching a different sport than what the Giants play. And that really stood out in my mind. Second off, shout out Gabriel Davis, 8 catches, 201 yards, 4 touchdowns, burning the Chiefs defensive back, literally making him fall on a 4th and 13. Ironic it was 4th and 13 because then there was 13 seconds left for the Chiefs to come back. The whole squib kick debacle, yeah, I think in hindsight, it's obviously easy to criticize the decision and play Monday morning quarterback. I don't really have an issue with him kicking it out of bounds. In theory, on a squib kick, you could just fair catch it and fall on it. No time runs off the clock. It could have played out so many ways. I don't have any issue with how that went down. In overtime, yeah, the rules suck, but at the same time, I don't know what the fix is. I don't love college football rules. I don't think it works in the NFL. I don't know how you can make sure each team gets the same possession. I don't know what the fix is, and I hear a lot of people complain about the overtime rules without offering a solution, and that kind of annoys me. Oh, you hate this? Okay, what's better? I don't know what's better.
Well, here's a potential remedy. Listen, because the reality of the situation is the rule is not perfect. I don't know if it will ever be perfect, but the best argument I've heard is if you score on your first possession, get a touchdown, and you also convert the 2-point conversion, then you win the game, which obviously makes it a little more, I guess, authentic. It makes it a little harder, I guess, for the playoffs.
So if you don't get a 2-point conversion, the other team
gets an opportunity,
and they could go for 2, or they
have to go for 2.
I don't love that.
Whatever. Listen, the grand scheme of things, let's make this abundantly clear. The Bills did not lose that game because of the coin toss.
Agreed.
They lost that game.
I agree.
They lost that game because they couldn't stop Patrick Mahomes from driving 50 yards in 10 seconds because they were on the Bills' 30-yard line with 3 seconds to go. They drove 50 yards in 10 seconds. It was absolutely crazy. So I don't want to hear it. Gabriel Davis could have fallen down at the 1-yard line to run out the clock more. The Chiefs, if I was screaming at Tyreek Hill, please fall down before he scored.
I was too. That was my first.
Both teams were we don't care. We just want to score immediately, and we'll take our chances with that. So there's a million different things that can happen over the course of the game. Where if one of those things happens differently, then the outcome of the game is different. We're not in the situation that we ended up being in. You could even look at, a couple in that AFC title game between Brady and Mahomes. If Frank Clark, I believe who it was, didn't go offsides, Chiefs win the game. There's no overtime. So you look at the course of the game, there's a million different things that could happen. And if one of those things happens differently, the outcome of the game changes. So all the people that are overtime, don't give me that. Make one stop. Make your defense make one stop. And this whole notion that it's like the quarterbacks and the offense, the only two or the only unit on the field. The defense does not exist. If you want to win the Super Bowl, then have your defense make a stop. That's where I stand on it.
It's a 3-phase game. Buffalo had the number 1 defense in the league all season long. You would think, in theory, that's not a terrible position to be in with your defense in that situation, considering how highly they ranked. I thought their defense in the last 13 seconds was pitiful. I didn't understand on the Kelsey catch why they're guarding the sidelines when Kansas City had 2 timeouts left. I didn't understand that. And I don't know if you saw the NFL audio where Mahomes and Kelsey were talking to each other before the play, and he says, just run to space, I'll find you. That was awesome, and I love to hear those little tidbits. But it makes no sense why they're guarding the sideline when Kansas City had timeouts. Also, back to the squib kick, like you said.
The squib kick is that's a moot point.
No. But what I'm saying is they got down the field in 10 seconds. There was still 3 seconds on the clock. So even if you squib it and waste a second, they still had time to do exactly what they did. So everyone's saying they should have kicked it out of bounds, or should have squibbed it. Yeah. In hindsight, it's easy to say that, but that was not the reason they lost. And back to what you said, Frank, the reason Buffalo lost was they couldn't stop Kansas City from going 51 yards in 10 seconds. That's the reason they lost. And they played silly prevent defense And at the same time, I'm going to criticize them for playing prevent. I'm going to also criticize Tampa Bay for bringing the house in that situation and leaving Cooper Kupp one-on-one with Antoine Winfield, which we'll get to in a sec. So I still don't know what the right balance is, but it seems like anytime you go in straight prevent defense, the other team picks up way more yards than you would like. And next thing you know, they're in position to score, which is the opposite of what you're attempting to happen.
And Dan Orlovsky had an incredible breakdown of that last drive for Kansas City in regulation on his. It was on Twitter. It was unbelievable how Buffalo's defense was playing so off Hale and Kelsey. Like, you got to, I mean, obviously the Cup, I guess they tried jamming him and he still got by him, but you got to like have guys in the line of scrimmage just basically tackle them in the line of scrimmage, take the penalty, and then have Mahomes before like run or throw it away. And by the time, you take 1, 2, potentially 3 defensive holding penalties, they have one last chance at a miracle Hail Mary. And I think that would have been the best course of action if I was the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, easier said than done. And there's a chance that they put Hill in motion and they can't tackle him like that. And then he ends up sprinting past the defense and Mahomes hits him for a touchdown. So maybe it's not as clear cut as, just tackle him at line of scrimmage and you'll be fine. So it's hard for me as someone who's never actually played a true football game to say that that's what they should have done. But more of the story is overtime did not obviously, if they would have won the toss, it would have been very beneficial to them, but overtime was not the reason why the Buffalo Bills did not win this game. You have 13 seconds, a 3-point lead, make one stop, and you advance. That's all it comes down to, and that's all that needs to be said about it. In the other game, Ryan Tannehill is absolute disgrace. And for me, he's in the same conversation as Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott. He's a guy on your team that if you have him, you have a great chance to win your division. You have a great chance to win a playoff game. Heck, you have even a chance to host a playoff game and be the top seed in your conference. But when push comes to shove, he is not a guy that you can count on to lead your team to a Super Bowl or a championship. And those guys have a place in this league. But and I tweeted this, and a couple people were very, very critical of my thoughts. If you're the Titans, if you're the Vikings, if you're the Cowboys, you have to look yourself in the mirror and think, what are our goals? And obviously, they'll say Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, but the reality is you're not winning Super Bowl with Dak Prescott, or Kirk Cousins, or Ryan Tannehill. But if you have those guys, it's better than having, or depending on how you look at it, it's better than having a Daniel Jones. It's better than having a Zach Wilson who's a catastrophe. It's better than having, a guy who you basically know that, not only do we not have a chance to win a championship, we're basically not going to be competitive because of our quarterback. So that's the hard balance, because you get rid of the guy and then it's like, then you go. So I don't know what the right balance is. All I know is that Ryan Tannehill is not a championship level quarterback.
Yeah, I think Tannehill falls into the category of he's good, he's not great. And if you need him to win you a game, you're going to be in trouble. It's what it comes down to that. There are certain times where he may make a throw in a late game situation, even like the one to A.J. Brown in Saturday's contest, where perfect throw, perfect time. But when push comes to shove, do you feel confident with Ryan Tannehill leading your team on a drive in the final minutes of a game? The answer is no. And I think there's more no's than yeses to that question throughout the league. And the teams who are still playing have 3.5 guys who you feel pretty darn confident can lead you in that situation. If you don't have that guy, you probably don't have your future quarterback for the next 10 years. Like, that's just the truth of the matter. And there's maybe 8 guys in the league who you feel confident saying for sure 100% yes to that question. And until you have that guy, you don't have an answer at quarterback, and you have to keep looking. So I don't know what I think the Titans drafted a quarterback in the first round. I honestly got the Titans end up drafting a quarterback in the first round, maybe early second, trading up. You have Tannehill under contract. He starts next year. Let the rookie be under him, learn from him, and you can groom him how you want. But Tannehill has one more year in Tennessee, and it's done, because they don't have a ton of flexibility or cap space to make wholesale changes right now. They're kind of tied into a lot of things. And also, Frank, I'd like your opinion on this. I thought Vrabel, who I believe is coach of the year this year, was severely outcoached on Saturday. I think Zach Taylor ran circles around him in that regard. And the play call, I know he doesn't call the plays, but on that third and short and fourth and short situation late in the fourth quarter to go QB read or QB option, read option with Tannehill, and then to run a slow developing handoff to Derrick Henry, who, for as good as Henry is, he's not a great short yardage back. I hated those two play calls. I absolutely hated those two play calls.
Listen, the Titans got 9 sacks, and Joe Burrow didn't throw it for a touchdown. If Ryan Tannehill doesn't throw the red zone pick after the Deontay Foreman big run, and if he doesn't force the ball to, a no-name receiver, I believe Westbrook and Kina, whatever his name is, like when push comes to shove, you got to go to your best guys. That's what made Mahomes so great. He targeted Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce when it mattered most. That's who he went to. He didn't go to Byron Pringle or Jerick McKinnon. He went to Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. In those moments, you got to go to the guys that you pay the big bucks to, the guys that you can count on in those moments. And forcing a ball to a no-name receiver and the biggest point of the game isn't really the greatest concept. So I'm not going to kill Vrabel. I just think Tannehill just made more mistakes than Burrow, and that's why they lost the game. Tannehill just made too many mistakes and they couldn't overcome it. But AFC title game, Chiefs are favored by 7. Total is 54. Obviously, this is a rematch of Week 17. I have no doubt in my mind the Chiefs are going to win. To ask them to cover the 7, though, against an offense like Cincinnati, I think it's a really tough task. I think the bet I would do for this weekend is I would do a 7-point teaser, take the Chiefs down to a pick 'em, and do the 49ers plus 10.5, and that would be my bet. I don't trust Kansas City to cover the 7, and that's what I would do.
Yeah, so I was very wrong on Cincinnati this week. I thought they had already.
I said if you're going to bet the game, take the Bengals money line.
You did. I thought, and I didn't think they played very well either, and that's the disappointing part. I feel like my thought process was right. The Titans just stunk, and I once again kind of feel like Cincinnati hasn't played great in 2 playoff games, yet they've still won, and you can't play anything below an A game against Kansas City and expect to beat the Chiefs. So I think the Chiefs win. I think there may be a little bit of a hangover early from this Bills game for Kansas City. And I might take the Chiefs. The Bengals first quarter spread. I think they come out maybe a little more intense and ready to go. But I just think at the end of the day, it's been a great run for Cincinnati. They made it further than anyone ever would have imagined before the season started. They were 150-1 to win the Super Bowl when the season kicked off. An unbelievable story by Joe Burrow with what this staff and this team has done. But they're not as good as Kansas City. And I think in the regular season, it's one thing to do what they did. To do it in a postseason game with a chip to the Super Bowl on the line, I think it's a completely different ball game. And I'm going to bet Cincinnati early, Kansas City to win in the end.
So Joe Burrow is not fazed by anything. Like this whole moment, oh my God, we made this far. We're not used to this. That's a foreign concept to Joe Burrow, who's been in the biggest games of college football. The dude has there's no fear factor. There's no, the moment's too big for him. So I don't know. I don't think he's going to go in there and be, taken aback by the moment. I don't see that happening for him. I don't either. For Mahomes to lose twice to a guy like Joe Burrow, I just don't see that happening at all. But if you were making me put money on the game, I would bet the Chiefs minus the points. And just because teams that win in the playoffs cover. So if you like the Chiefs to win the game, they're going to cover the spread. That's just the way this thing has worked. I believe all 4 teams that won this weekend covered the spread. Obviously, 3 underdogs won, and one favorite won. The one favorite being Kansas City. And obviously, all of them covered the spread. So if you like the team to win the game, then just bet them to cover the spread, because that just seems to be the trend here in the playoffs the last 3 years. I believe it was 27-3. Now it's 31-3. So teams that win the games are 31-3 against the spread. So the team that you like to win the game, just bet them at ATS and then just take your chances from there. Packers Niners. Man, this feels like the end for Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. I mean, Cowherd went on the air today and was like, well, Green Bay wants him. But the ball is not in Green Bay's court. This is all what Aaron Rodgers wants to do. And if Rodgers forces a trade, guess what? He's going to get traded. He's going to retire. He's going to retire. I have no idea what he's going to do. All I know is that if I were him, I feel like you gotta go a different scenario here, different situation. You saw what happened with Peyton Manning at the end of his career, with Denver, won a Super Bowl. Tom Brady going to Tampa, won a Super Bowl. I feel like he's got to recognize that and pick his spot, whether it's Pittsburgh, whether it's Indianapolis, whether it's whatever potential Denver, whatever team it is. He's got to go. I feel like he's got to go do a different situation here and just have a fresh start and go win a championship, because you're Aaron Rodgers. The fact that you only been to one Super Bowl in your whole career is crazy. he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. He's only been to 1 Super Bowl. It's baffling.
Yeah, well, here's my take on Rodgers. That game on Saturday night was a different Aaron Rodgers than we had seen all season. What made Aaron Rodgers so spectacular this year was he was taking what the defense gave him, finding his open receivers, and if he double-teamed Devontae Adams, he was hitting Lazard, he was hitting Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He was finding Randall Cobb and finding his other receivers underneath who turned short catches into big gains. And on Saturday, he was locked into Devontae Adams. And I'm not sure if that was San Francisco's strategy to, say, if Adams is going to beat us, Adams is going to beat us, but we're not going to let anyone else do damage. And if it was, credit to them. But it felt like he didn't trust some of his guys in certain situations to make plays. And I'm not sure why that would change from a postseason game, from the regular season to a postseason game, especially at home in a situation where any yards in that situation were crucial. And yeah, this loss, Rodgers didn't play well. The Packers still should have won. It came down to special team snafus on multiple occasions that even allowed San Francisco to win that football game. I mean, they didn't score a touchdown. And I've heard a couple people say this, and I agree. If that punt isn't recovered in the end zone for a touchdown, there's no guarantee San Francisco scores from the 4 or 5 yard line. Like, that's how porous their offense had been, despite the fact you would assume a Kyle Shanahan-led offense would be able to run the ball 4 times for 5 yards. They couldn't get anything going on Saturday. Jimmy G was not good once again. And it terrifies me with them moving forward because I kind of think they're going to win, despite the fact I haven't liked what I've seen from them over the last 6 quarters of football on the offensive side of things. So I look at Rodgers in this Packers situation as, is there a place he can go that is a better setup than Green Bay? The answer, I don't think the answer is yes, but that doesn't mean Rodgers is going to decide to stay. Rodgers is going to do whatever he wants, and I think trying to predict what's in that man's mind is a dangerous game to play because, to be honest, I don't know if he even knows what he wants yet. So to predict what he wants in a couple of weeks, like, you're completely just pulling things out of your butt to say something on air, and I'm not going to do that. But I do think it is worth noting that as far as pure team fit goes, coaching staff, weapons, everything along those lines, he is set up for success in Green Bay. LaFleur's won 39 games in his first 3 years as head coach. Like, there's something that's working. They just have to find a way to get over the hump, which is a lot easier said than done. So I have no idea where Rodgers ends up. It won't be Indy. They have no first-round picks to trade. But I have no idea. And I think him going to Pittsburgh or Denver, like, I don't know if those are actually better situations besides the fact that we're fantasizing about seeing one of the 5 best quarterbacks elsewhere.
I do think I legitimately think Pittsburgh, if they would have had a legitimate quarterback this year, they might have been the best team in the AFC.
Their offensive line though was abysmal.
All right, maybe. But you had Najee Harris in the backfield. You have, Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Freiermuth turned out to be a major weapon. I just feel like with that, the way they were set up on offense with those weapons, I mean, those are elite weapons. Yeah. I mean, so we'll see. I have no idea what's going to happen with Rodgers. Like you said, he's like Kyrie Irving. But this 49ers team, as you mentioned, I think they're going to win. They got, those Eli Manning Giant team vibes. There's just like the quarterback's not going to play great, but the defense is, as long as the quarterback doesn't screw it up and keeps you in the game, the defense and the special teams and whatnot is going to make enough plays and, do their part to keep you in the game. And all you got to have is that one break, whether it's the block punt, whether it's, the David Tyree catch or whatever it is to set up to get you where you want to go. And they got the most electric playmaker in the playoffs remaining. That's Deebo Samuel, who on that 3rd and 7 ride put the team on his back and set him up for that field goal. No hyperbole, just in that moment on a handoff in that situation to get that first down. It was unbelievable. Obviously, he had limped off the field after 9. He's going to be okay, I believe. That's what Shanahan said yesterday. But man, what a run by Deebo Samuel. That dude he is big time. And it feels like
good as that run is, though, Frank, that shows me the lack of confidence Kyle Shanahan has in Jimmy G. And to win the
NFC, the confidence he has in Deebo Samuel. I feel like Deebo Samuel, if he would have started at quarterback in that game, he would have done better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I feel like they almost should put him in. I'm dead serious. Like,
you're right. Jimmy G did nothing. I mean, honestly, Garoppolo, credit to him for winning the game somehow. He did nothing. And I don't know if you have the stats in front of you, but he literally
11 of 19 for 131 yards and a pick. No touchdowns.
Deebo could have done that. Deebo could do that.
Yeah, Deebo is. I mean, he is otherworldly, and I've never had more fun rooting for a player in fantasy football on my team than I had with Deebo Samuel this year. There was the Monday night game. I was up by 5 points going into the night. I was facing Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp. I had Deebo Samuel, and I had a 30% chance, 25% chance to win. And Deebo outscored both of them, outscored Stafford, outscored Kupp, and I won that week. It was just remarkable how
he's unreal. I think we see next season a lot of teams using receivers more like the Niners use Debo and finding ways just to get their best playmaker the ball, whether it's from the backfield. And I know Debo's built a little different. He's thicker, his legs are massive, but I think we see other guys around the league implement that strategy with some elite playmakers. And I think that leads to more fun football for everybody. Like the more Debo touches the ball, the more entertaining the game is. The more CeeDee Lamb gets it in Dallas, the more entertaining the game is. Like there are a couple of guys around the league who I think can, I'm not saying exactly replicate what Debo does, but give us a pretty good impersonation or impression of it. And I would love to see how that translates next year when more guys are in that kind of wide back role, as he calls. And that's going to make fantasy football a lot more fun, trying to figure out who those guys will be. Because we saw Cordero Patterson do it too this year.
Man, he's not even, and Debo Samuel's exponentially more talented than Cordero Patterson. So Debo's my favorite player in the league. And
what a great name, too, by the way. Debo is just the coolest name ever. Like, it really is.
Yeah, I think about naming my son either Debo or Ray Ray, one of those two. We'll see what happens.
Ray Frank, I love it.
Debo
Frankel is actually a good name.
Yeah, I do kind of like the name Debo. It rolls off the tongue. It's just a cool thing to say. It's a fun, really fun name to say. Probably one of the most fun names to say along with Ray Ray. Last thing, Brady nearly did it again. If he would have done, it had nothing to do with him, even though he did hit Mike Evans, who beat Ramsey. But that was just the Rams completely falling. It wasn't even Stafford. It was Cam Akers, and it was special teams. And I was shocked that I thought they were going to lose that game when they 45-3. I thought this was like the Rams where Brady was just going to keep heaving him up and double coverage, keep getting intercepted, and I just think they didn't have any chance. But they came all the way back, and then as you mentioned before, Cooper Kupp wide open. The one guy that you just have to cover. Like the Bills let Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce do whatever they want. The Buccaneers let Cooper Kupp just run right down the middle of the field. No one covered him, and they lost the game. That is one of the most inexcusable things ever. I can't believe that after coming all the way back, they still lost the game. Moral of the story, though, I think that was it for Brady. I think you're starting to read the tea leaves here with the interview with Jim Gray. We talked about after the game. This feels like the end for Tom Brady. I thought it was going to happen 5 or 6 years ago. I thought it was going to happen while we were in college. I was ready to celebrate, and it still hasn't happened. But I really do feel like, given the whole Man in the Arena being delayed, given the fact that he's going to be 45, the comments made about Giselle, and I just feel like this is the end.
All right, couple of things, because you covered the whole game in one, so I'm going to take this step by step. I was driving back from San Antonio, listening to the game on the radio in the first half. It was a butt whooping. I didn't see it, but the Rams apparently played as well as they possibly could have and got out to this 27-3 lead. And as soon as I walked into my apartment and turned the TV on, I felt like I was in a Buffalo Wild Wings commercial where they demand overtime football and they hit a button and all of a sudden chaos ensues. So you have the strip sack by Von Miller, right? Brady fumbles, Rams recover in plus territory, game over. Well, then the center snaps it 60 yards behind Stafford, which PFT brought this up. Do centers always snap it that hard? Like, there's no way. That was a missile. It went 30 yards behind Stafford. And then, of course, Tampa recovers. Of course, Tampa scores. Then there's another Cooper Kupp fumble. Tampa scores. And there's the Cam Akers sack. It felt like the NFL was once again rigged, and Tom Brady was a cat with 9 lives, somehow finding a way to claw his team back to a tied game at 27 after being down by 24 points midway through the third quarter. It was unfathomable. And the collapse the Rams had, I thought, was actually a worse football collapse than what the Falcons did in the Super Bowl, just based on the unfortunate timing of all their miscues. It wasn't, punt, 3 and out, quick score. It was turnover in plus territory, absolutely crippling. And then for the Cooper Kupp one, I talked about Buffalo playing prevent defense earlier and how I hate that. I also don't know if I agree with Vance Joseph and Greg Williams' philosophy of zero blitz in that situation, because you can't get beat deep. The one thing you can't have there is getting beat deep in that situation. And I don't know if it was a busted coverage. I don't know exactly what the play was, but to have Cooper Kupp literally just run a go route across the middle of the field on a safety, it seems unfathomable that is the defensive play call that was executed the right way. I saw a report yesterday that some of the Bucs players didn't know they were blitzing, some did, and that led to part of the confusion.
Right.
That's on Tampa Bay for miscommunication, and give credit to Los Angeles for getting to the line quickly and hiking the ball without letting them get set and figure out the exact play call. But it just seems incredulous that Cooper Kupp runs down the middle of the field for a 50-yard gain. They get up, spike the ball, kick the game-winning field goal. If Brady had pulled that off, I would have believed the NFL is rigged. I truly would have believed the NFL was rigged, and they were doing everything in their power, even though it wasn't even the refs, just doing everything in their power to make sure Tom Brady gets back to the Super Bowl. But lo and behold, the Rams do what they do. What are your eyes coming up at, Frank?
Sean Payton has informed the Saints that he's stepping away from the team.
Wow.
Unbelievable. I'm not shocked. Here's my initial reaction.
He's the next Cowboys coach. You heard
it. No, he's going to go to TV. He's going to be on like Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football. He's going into broadcasting. Lock it in. All the networks want him. He is the next big fish in TV broadcasting. Lock it in right now.
I'm going to predict the next coach of the Cowboys. We'll see.
That'd be a great hire. Anyone is better than Mike McCarthy. So last thing before we go here, Rams are favored by 3.5. Rams are obviously the more talented team, but since 2019, San Francisco is 6-0 against the Rams. They swept them in 19, 20, and 21. 3 straight years they swept them. Like, I feel like the 49ers are the team of destiny. My best bet for the weekend is Chiefs to pick them, 49ers plus 10.5. But in this game, I do like the 49ers on the money line. It just feels like they're just Shanahan's got the upper hand over McVay somehow. I don't know how. Garoppolo will make enough plays. Deebo Samuel is, like I said, the most electrifying playmaker left in the sport. 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Super Bowl, and then Trey Lance going to be sitting in the sideline for the next 6 years because Jimmy Garoppolo is not giving it up.
I do not disagree with anything you said, except for the fact that I think the Rams end up winning. My gut, I would not bet on this game. I don't feel good, but back in 2007 and 2011, the Cowboys beat the Giants twice in the regular season. The Giants beat them in the postseason. For whatever reason, it's damn near impossible to beat the same team 3 times in one calendar year. And despite the fact that Kyle Shanahan owned Sean McVay, I have just a weird feeling that, and maybe it's an anti-Jimmy G feeling, that I just can't believe him playing at the level he's playing at can lead a team to the Super Bowl right now. But I think McVay finds a way to pull this one out one way or the other. They were up late in the game against San Francisco in Week 18, a chance to literally end the 49ers season before the postseason began. They choked there. McVay's been close to getting over that Shanahan pill, bump, whatever you want to call it. I think this is the time he does get it done. And I love the Rams saying no one can buy a ticket who lives 100 miles outside of Los Angeles. Yeah, be as petty as you can and give yourself as much of a home field advantage as humanly possible, Los Angeles, because if not, it'll be a San Francisco quote unquote home game. And be as petty. It's a division rival. Like be as petty as you want. And I think we end up seeing a Chiefs-Rams Super Bowl.
That's the matchup the league wants. The league wants Mahomes, and they want the Rams in their home stadium in that market. I feel like that's definitely the matchup they want. I really wanted Garoppolo Brady this week. That's the matchup that I really, 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 really wanted because Brady hates Garoppolo.
If you wanted to see the best out of Brady, having Jimmy G on the sideline with a chance to go to the Super Bowl would have been the best version of Tom Brady we ever saw.
100%. But I just don't see how any of these games can top what we had last week. It's just the NFL can't keep topping themselves on a week in, week out basis.
Last question. Was Kansas City and Buffalo, or were Kansas City and Buffalo the 2 best teams in the NFL?
Yeah, that should have been Super Bowl. I agree.
I agree.
Yeah. The fact that here's a silver lining for the Bills, and this will be the last thing. This notion, like the Bills' window is not closed. They'll have, assuming Josh Allen doesn't, get into a fatal car accident, which knock on wood, but like assuming that nothing catastrophic happens to Josh Allen, they will own the AFC East for the next 10 years, lock it in, and they'll have every opportunity in the world to be in this same position every year going forward. The only thing that scares me is these, playing in these, Arctic cities like Buffalo and Green Bay. Like those cities just, and even like Cleveland, you look at, what's happened with, and obviously maybe Joe Burrow started to change the tune in Cincinnati, but like these Arctic cities just have a really, really tough time winning championships unless they have a dome. I don't know if there's any like actual like science or what the reasoning for that, but just feels like these ice cold weather cities never really. I mean, the
Do
year
you not
Rodgers
consider
won.
do you not consider New England an Arctic city?
No, it's not like Green Bay or Cincinnati or Buffalo. Buffalo and Green Bay to me are the two of the coldest places on. It might as well be two of the coldest places on planet Earth. It feels like every time there's a playoff game there, or like a game in December or January, it's 0 degrees and the field is frozen. But it's not like that. Sometimes in New England, it's not that bad. Obviously, there have been games like that in New England, but it feels like every December, January game in Buffalo and every December, January game in Green Bay, it's 0 degrees and just as cold as it can possibly get on planet Earth. So we'll see what happens here. You know my best bets. James Harden. Just win a championship this year and do whatever you want. That's where I stand on it. Just win a championship and then
I'm with you.
The floor is yours. Then I'll do it for the Lucas and Lucas podcast. Take the Lakers on the money line. I'll play this clip back when that hits. See you all next week.